Borthakur IAS Academy, an endeavor of excellence.
Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. I am your friend Atrey and today is 11th of May 2021. Today I am here with another segment of Current Affairs 365, your one-stop solution for any news and current updates which will be helping you for your civil service examination and also for other competitive exams. Please like and share this video and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So the first news of today is about the new Chief Minister of Assam, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma. He was sworn as the 15th Chief Minister of Assam yesterday at Srimanta Shankardev Kalakshetra. Along with him, 13 other ministers also took their oath, and the Governor of Assam, Professor Jagdish Mukhi, he administered the oath of office and secrecy to the cabinet ministers at the swearing-in ceremony. After the oath-taking ceremony, the Chief Minister, while addressing the press, said that combating the worsening COVID situation would be the new government's immediate and topmost priority. Along with it, it will also strive to fulfill the other pledges made in the last assembly election in a time-bound manner. Along with it, Dr. Sharma also added some other goals of the government, which includes flood control, employment generation, improving the law and order situation, and also making special provisions for safety, maintaining safety for women and effecting lasting peace and progress in the entire state. Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma has been active in politics since 2001, and in last couple of years he has been involved by taking charges of some of the most important departments of our state like finance, education, PWD, planning and development, health and family welfare. His major achievements includes providing appointment to more than 50,000 teachers through the Teachers Eligibility Test, eliminating the interview culture. He came up with 3 medical colleges in Jorhat, Borpeta and Tejpur, and also initiated work for 5 more medical colleges which are currently in different phases of completion. And last year he successfully tackled the first wave of COVID-19 pandemic, which got applause from the international media and the World Health Organization also. Along with this, he has penned 3 books in Assamese and also translated a few political pieces. The 3 books are titled as Homagoto Homoy, Bhinno Homoy Obhinno Mot, and Eta Hopunor Pamkhedi. So moving ahead to the second news for today, which is regarding the super cycle of commodities. A commodity super cycle is actually a sustained period of abnormally strong demand growth, which the producers often struggle to match, and this results in an increase in the prices of those commodities, which can last not just for a few years, but in some cases it can last for a decade or more. Under the current situation, we can see certain commodities which are involved, which are listed in this super cycle of commodities, and they include metals like steel, which is the most commonly used input in construction sector, and it is at an all-time high, as most metal, including base and precious metals prices, have increased a lot in the last year. The agricultural products like sugar, corn, coffee, soybean oil, etc. have risen sharply in the US commodities market, and this has affected its effect has been drastically seen in the domestic market too. The main reason behind this super cycle of commodities is because of the recovery in the global demand after the pandemic, the supply side constraints, loose monetary policy of global central banks, and also investment in asset creation. So we can see that the main factor is because of the fear of inflation that is leading to this jump of prices, and not the actual demand drive. Okay. The major concern includes the increase in input cost pressures, which is not only expected to have a bearing on the cost of infrastructure development in India, but also it will have an impact on the overall inflation, economic recovery and policy making. So here the decision makers, they have to be very careful, as they need to look at the mismatch in supply and demand, and also to find out where to invest and how can they incentivize through the production linked incentive scheme in order to prepare themselves to deal with the situation. The next news is regarding NITI Aayog's report for a digitally inclusive Bharat. Niti Aayog and MasterCard, they have released a report which is titled as Connected Commerce, Creating a Roadmap for a Digitally Inclusive Bharat. This particular report, it challenges the exhilarating digital financial inclusion, okay, in India, and provides recommendations for making the digital services accessible to the entire population of 1.3 billion citizens of our country. Now, what is digital financial inclusion? It can be broadly defined as a digital access to use the formal financial services by excluded and undeserved populations also. Such services should be suited to the customer's needs and needs to be delivered responsibly at a cost which is both not just affordable to the customers but also sustainable for its providers. However, there are certain challenges which are involved in providing the digital finance inclusion for our entire population, because we all know that the major chunk of our population, it resides in the rural areas, okay, and they are not very aware. So there are certain challenges which are like the demand side gap. Although a lot of effort has been put to attain the DFI and much success on the supply side of the DFI has been seen, okay, like through the initiatives like e-governance, the JAM Trinity, goods and services tax, direct benefit transfer schemes, etc. But the break in the digital financial flow comes at the last mile, where we can see that the account holders mostly withdraw cash for their end use. And again, the second challenge is unsuccessful agri-techs. Most agri-techs, they have not succeeded in digitizing the financial transactions for farmers or enabling formal credit at low rates of interest by leveraging the transaction data. We all know that agriculture and its allied sector, they provide livelihood to a large section of our Indian population. So under that situation, this particular problem where we have seen that the agri-techs, they have not been successful in digitizing the financial transactions. So that is creating another hurdle, okay. And third challenge is trust issues, trust and security in digital commerce. With the increase in digital transactions, there has been also a rise in the risk for possible security breaches, not just for the consumers but also for the business outlets. And as per a report of June 2020, it says that 40,000 cyber attacks are targeted towards the IT infrastructure of the banking sector in India. So these are certain challenges which are involved, okay, in digital financial inclusion. So now, in order to overcome the challenges which we discussed, there are certain probable solutions, which includes the addressing of the gap on the demand side by creating user-friendly digital products and services which will encourage the behavioral transition from cash to digital. A very good example of this includes the FASTags. Then they can also work on strengthening the payment infrastructure, which will promote a level playing field for the non-banking financial companies and the banks. Third, they can go for digitizing the registration and compliance processes and diversifying credit sources to enable the growth for the MSMEs, right? So these are some of the solutions, okay. And another one we can add is the building information sharing systems, which includes a fraud repository and also ensures that online digital commerce platforms, they carry warnings or alerts to the consumers in case of risk of frauds. Now let us have a look at the digital financial inclusion initiatives which are taken in our country. As I have already mentioned about the JAM Trinity, that is the Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity, the combination of Aadhaar, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and a surge in the mobile communication, it has reshaped the way the citizens assessed the government services, okay. And then the expansion of financial services in rural and semi-urban areas. Reserve Bank of India and NABARD, they have taken initiatives to promote some financial institutions in the rural areas, like opening of bank branches in remote areas, issuing the Kisan credit cards, linking self-help groups with banks, providing more number of ATMs in the rural areas, and payment infrastructure development fund scheme, etc. So these initiatives have broadened the horizons of the population residing in the rural areas. Okay, it has enlightened them, it has made them aware of the importance of digitization. The next news is regarding illegal sale of uranium. Recently, 2 people were arrested for possessing uranium without license and selling it illegally under the Atomic Energy Act of 1962. And when the sample which they were selling, okay, that was tested, it was confirmed as natural uranium by the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Now, uranium, as we all know, it occurs naturally in the in low concentrations in soil, rock and water, and it is a hard radioactive metal which is very dense in nature. When divided finely, the uranium can react with cold water, and in air it is mostly coated by uranium oxide. It can form solid solutions and intermetallic compounds with many of the metals, and because of this quality, it has a wide range of application. It is used for energy production. Okay, one of the main use of uranium is in the civilian sector because it can be used as a fuel for the nuclear power plants for generation of nuclear energy. Along with it, it is also used in making atom bombs, and one of the first atomic bombs which were used in the warfare was a uranium. It was an uranium bomb. They are used as shielding agents against radiation, as counterweights in industry, and also as fertilizer. Phosphate fertilizers are made from material which are typically high in uranium, so they usually contain high amounts of uranium. Fertilizers, they mostly contains high amount of uranium. Uranium can have certain negative impact on the health and environment because of its composition, because of its characteristics. Okay, uranium has both chemical and radiological toxicity which targets organs like kidneys and lungs. Therefore, it can have a negative impact on our health. Along with this, uranium mining facilities, they produce tailings, and that are generally disposed of in the near surface impoundments which are close to the mine. These tailings, they possess serious environmental and health risks in the form of radon emission. Coming to the uranium deposits of India, then uranium deposits, they mainly occurs in the Dharwar rocks and also includes the Singhbhum copper belt of Jharkhand, Udaipur, Alwar and districts of Rajasthan, Drug district of Chhattisgarh, etc. And recently a significant reserve have been discovered in the states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana as well. So the next news is regarding Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. This scheme is a part of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package which was initiated last year to help the poor fight the COVID battle. Its nodal ministry is the Ministry of Finance, and initially it was announced for a period of 3 months from April to June 2020, and it with an objective to cover 80 crore ration card holders. Later on, this was extended till November 2020. However, in April 2021, the government had announced its decision to restart this package, and recently 13 states, they have started distributing the food grains under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. This scheme, it mainly aims at providing each person who is covered under the National Food Security Act of 2013 with an additional 5 kg grains for free, along with the 5 kg of subsidized food grain already provided through the public distribution system. The new version of the scheme, however, lacks one of its important component which was there in the 2020 version, that is free of cost 1 kg of pulse per month to each of the household, those which are covered under the National Food Security Act. All the expenditures will be beared by the Government of India, and over 26,000 crore is accounted for the food subsidy, and central assistance to states and union territories on account of the intrastate transportation. Till now, out of the monthly allocation of 39.69 lakh metric tons under the scheme, 15.55 lakh metric tons have been lifted by the states. However, there is a major challenge in providing food at a subsidized rate to the population under this scheme, because this particular scheme, here the beneficiaries are based on the last census, that is the census of 2011. But the number of food insecure people, they have increased since then, and those remains uncovered. So this is one of the major challenge of this particular scheme. And the final news of today is about Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Our Prime Minister, he paid tribute to Gopal Krishna Gokhale on his Jayanti on 9th of May. He was born on 9th of May in the year 1866 at Kotlak village, which is in present day Maharashtra, and then it was a part of the Bombay Presidency. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, he was a great social reformer and an educationist who provided exemplary leadership to the India's freedom movement. He was a member of the Bombay Legislative Council and followed by his work at the Imperial Legislative Council from 1902 till his death in 1915. While he was a member of the Imperial Legislature, Gokhale played a key role in framing the Morley-Minto reform of 1909. He was also associated with the moderate group of the Indian National Congress and was the president of the Banaras session in 1905. That was the period when a bitter difference arose between the groups of moderates and the extremists that was led by Lala Lajpat Rai and Bal Gangadhar Tilak among the others, which finally led to the famous Surat split in the year 1907. Despite of their ideological differences, he intensely campaigned for the release of Lala Lajpat Rai, who was imprisoned that year by the British at Mandalay in present day Myanmar. Not just this, he was also related to several societies and other social works and established the Servants of India Society for the expansion of Indian education. He worked in association with the Sarvajanik Sabha Journal, which was started by Govind Ranade. He also founded the Ranade Institute of Economics and started English weekly newspaper named the Hitavada, that is the People's Paper. Mahatma Gandhi considered him as his political guru, okay? And Gandhi also wrote a book in Gujarati which was dedicated to the leader and is titled as Dharmatma Gokhale. This was all for today. I hope you liked this video. Please like and share, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another session of Current Affairs 365. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS একাডেমি।